Hi and welcome to this video on the cosine rule, or some better stuff to do with the area of a triangle. So you need a few new formula here. Main thing for this is how to label like a random triangle. So key things are, you can label the side lengths A, B and C in any order, doesn't really matter too much, as long as those letters are lowercase. Then each of those lengths will go with an angle, and the way these triangles are labelled, that this A will match with this A, and that's because this is the side length and the angles are opposite one another. So opposite this B, we're going to have angle B, and opposite this C, we're going to have angle C. So we're going to use this general layout for the formula we're going to see using the cosine rule, the sine rule, and also the area of a triangle. So we have the cosine rule here, and that is this formula here, a squared is b squared plus c minus 2bc cos a. And that's basically a version of Pythagoras' theorem, where you've got a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We can also rearrange into this form, and basically use the top form to work out lengths, and the bottom form to work out angles. And as you've seen in a previous video, we've also got the area of a triangle, which is a half AB sine C. And again, this is a version of a half base times height. So all these letters, A, B and C, they all refer to lengths on this kind of triangle. So the important thing here is this angle A has to be opposite this side length A. Okay, otherwise it just won't work right. So let's try a few questions. So like I said, this first form of the cosine rule, this is used to find missing lengths. Okay, and the setup in terms of what other sides you need, you basically need two other sides and the angle in between them. If you've got that, then you have enough to work out this side here. First thing, we're going to label our triangle. So as I said, because these lengths are both A's, they must be opposite one another. And also if I've only got one angle, so this must be angle A, which means A must be the side length A. Then B and C don't matter, they can go in either order. Okay, now we're going to plug it in. So let's write this formula down again, but this time plugging in everything we know. So A squared is now x squared. That equals b squared, which is 9 squared, plus c squared, minus 2 times b times c, times cos of a. Okay, and now we've got this formula. And in fact, we can just work this out now. There's nothing really to work out, so that's not cos a, because we know in this question that a is 30. All we need to do now is work out what x is. We've got x squared, so if we've got x squared, we want to work out x. All we need to do is just take the square root. Now we've got this formula, all we can do now is just plug it into our calculator. So square root of 9 squared plus 10 squared minus 9 times 10 times cos of the angle, which was 30. Type it all in and then we're done. So that missing length x was 5.01. Okay, and that's all there really is to it. So in these questions, you're basically just applying a formula. It's worth mentioning for these GCSEs, you do need to remember this formula, okay, which can be fairly awkward. It's not as easy for one to remember, but it's something you need to do. Let's go for one more example like this, the same basic idea. So we have this formula here. The important part is to make sure you label your triangle correctly. So if I've only got one angle, so that angle must be A, which means the x is lowercase a because it's opposite it, and then B and C can go in any order. Then we just plug it all in. So a squared is now x squared, and we just fill it in. So all you need to do is just look at the formula and look where things are labelled. Mistake I most often see is people get into this stage and then not realizing they need to square root it. So you've got x squared here, but you want x. So x will be the square root of all of this. Okay, that is the first form of the cosine rule. So again, we use the formula in this form when we're trying to work out a missing length. The other case you can use it is when we're trying to find a missing angle. Okay, so these two formulas are the same, but they just rearrange one to look like the other. So let's see how we can find missing angles now. So this setup is you will have all three side lengths and you just want to work out any angle. So again, we're going to start the exact same place. We're going to start by labeling my triangle. So first, there's still only one angle, so this angle must be A, which means the side length opposite it is going to be lower A, and then we've got B and C. So let's write that in now. So cos of x, that will equal b squared plus c squared, which is 12 squared plus 10 squared. Take away 7 squared, because that's a squared, all over 2bc, which is 2 times b times c. And if I type that into my calculator, that will give me cos of the angle. However, I don't really want cos of the angle. What I want is the angle itself. So just hopefully know if you've got cos of the angle and you want to undo that cos, we have a button for that. And that is cos to the minus 1. Sometimes called arc cos. When you calculate it just says cos to the minus 1. And then, just like before, we can go straight to our calculator and just type that in. So I want to do cos to the minus 1, and then plug in that big fraction. So the difficulty in this work is sometimes labeling angles right, but mainly it's just remembering that long formula when it comes to an exam or test. Because once you've got that formula, you just plug in those in the calculator, press the equals button, and does all the hard work for you. So here to one decimal place or 3 significant figures, that angle is 35.7 degrees. And again, we've got the exact same setup here. So I'll just go through the labeling and the plugging it in. I won't actually finish it. So first, we've only got one angle, so we label that as A. That means 19 is lowercase a, and then B and C don't matter. Then we just plug it all in. So cos of x will equal b squared plus c squared. Take away a squared, all over 2 times b times c. And again, you've got cos the angle, but we want the angle itself. So all we need to do is just type all this stuff in, and then do cos to the minus 1 to it. Okay, that's the main use of the cosine rule. So last thing to say, when you start a question, first we need to check, is are you trying to find a missing angle, or are you trying to find a missing length? That will tell you which formula you need to use. Once you get the right formula down, the rest of it becomes a lot easier. Okay, next we'll look at a few exam style problems. So I'm going to use both these formulas, you might need them at some point. Here we want to work out the perimeter of the shaded region. So perimeter is basically the whole way around it. So I need this length, and I also need this length. Okay. So let's start with the length P to S. Let's start with that straight line. We can use that, and that is just going to be the cosine rule. That's going to be the cosine rule used to work out a length. If I call this X, we have an angle, and we have the two sides either side of it. Plugging that in, x squared will equal b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos of the angle. And just like before here, I've got x squared, but I want x. So to work it out, I then need to square root my right hand side. Okay, and we can type that in fairly quickly. Okay, so there we can see that that length was 5.47. Next, we need the length PRS, this curved area. So to do that, that's just an arc of a circle. So to work out that length, we want the circumference for a whole circle, and then just multiply it by what fraction of a circle we have. So for the circumference for a full circle, we would do pi times diameter. Here you've got the radius is 8, which means the diameter must be 16. And a fraction of a circle, that is how many degrees we have out of a possible total of 360. And if I type that in, that'll give me the length PRS. So recurring theme for the GCSEs, they like merging topics together. So here we have a length of an arc being merged with non-right angled trigonometry, and that's a really common theme. So here this length was 5.59 to 3 different figures. Okay, and then it's pretty much done. To work out the perimeter, all you need to do is just add both of those together and we are done. Okay, one more like that. Okay, so here we've got C as the midpoint of BD, and we're going to find again the perimeter of this shaded region. So here I've got three things to work out. I have this length, and this length here. First things first, because we're told C is the midpoint of BD, and these two are the same length, we know that this length is going to be 10 centimeters. And so is this length as well. So first I can work out AC. Again, we can hopefully see that that's just going to be using the cosine rule. So we know that x squared will equal, let's label the triangle, I'll say 20 is B, 10 is C, this is A, and the angle is always capital A. So x squared is 20 squared plus 10 squared minus 2 times 20 times 10 times cos of the angle. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to type it into my calculator and then also square root the whole thing. Okay, having typed that in, and again don't forget the square root, that gives me x is 25.8. So I'll include a few extra decimal places. Just when I add it together, I'm not going to get around an error. So I'm going to say 25.866. Okay, that's one of my lengths. We've also got a 10 down here, and the other length we need is basically this arc round from A to B. So I'll call that y, and just as before to work that out, that's going to be the circumference times by what fractional circle I have. The circumference is pi times the diameter. Here we can see the radius is 20, so that's to the middle of the circle is where D is. And then the fractional circle we have is 115 out of 360. Again, it's how many degrees we've got out of a possible total of 360. Again, we type that into our calculator. And that will give us our third length that we need. Again, when I work this out, I'm going to include a few more decimal places. This just so I'm not going to get a round error when I add them all together. So here I'm going to write 40.143. Then for the final answer, for the perimeter, I've got the 25.866. I need to add on the 40.143. And also don't forget the 10 centimeters, that was the length from B to C. Add those all together, that will be our perimeter. Here we'd round it to 3 different figures if we're asked, and in that case that would be 76.0. Okay, I'll just do one more example. I'm just going to use the area of a triangle here. So here we are told the area of a triangle, we're told it's 15 centimeters. We need to use that to work out the value of x. So here we're going to use both these rules. First, we're going to use this formula. We're given the area, so it makes sense to use the area of the triangle formula. So we know the area, just copying this down, is a half AB sine C. And remember from previous video, we work out the area when we have two lengths and the angle in between them. So here, this would be my C, this would be my A and my B. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to plug in what I know and use that to work out the angle C. So the area is 15, that is a half times 11 times 4 times sine C. Again, the opposite of timesing by all this stuff is going to be dividing by it. That will give me sine C. Again, I don't want sine, I want the angle. So C is going to be sine to the minus 1 of all this stuff here. Okay, if I type that into my calculator, that will give me that missing angle. So with these questions, it's worth mentioning, if you're never sure where to start with somewhere, the best thing you can just do is just work out any angle you can. Because like 99 times out of 100, it's going to be useful. Might not be the final answer, but it'll get you somewhere. And even if you get stuck there, that'll at least get you some working out marks. So here I've worked out C to 3, I'll do 4 different figures, is 42.99. So again, I'd always say include a few extra places, at least half before you're working out, and then round some more right at the end. If you round too much too soon, you're going to get your final answer slightly wrong. Okay. We know this length is 42.99. What we need to do now is we can find the value of x. So let me just delete this working out. So I know in part with these questions is when we need to find x, we actually need to relabel our triangle. So I'm going to delete these old labels here. We can hopefully see this is the format for using the cosine rule to find a missing length. Again, for this format here, it's kind of the same as the sine rule. You want two lengths and the angle in between them. So let's label our triangle. So here now this is angle A, which makes this side A, and these are sides B and C. So again, for the cosine rule area triangle formula, the way these triangles are labelled tends to be different. So I'm just going to relabel the triangle to get the right answer. Okay, let's plug in what we know. So a squared is x squared, that is b squared, plus c squared, minus 2bc cos A. And then again, to work out x, I'm just going to square root all that stuff there. Okay, and then we're pretty much done. All we need to do now is just plug that into my calculator. Okay, having done that, we've got a squared, b squared plus c squared minus 2bc times cos of A. Square root of all of that gives me that missing length, which is 8.52. And again, here I will round it to three significant figures. Okay, and that is it. So again, the harder, more exam style problems involve using more than one rule. Okay, and that's kind of a recurring theme in all GCSE maths. Anyway, hope you found that useful, and thanks for listening.